What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of NFT 365. And this summer, we've kind of been jumping around a little bit, and it's kind of just the way the summer goes. Also, with the market, I'm moving. There's lots of moving parts here, but I appreciate the feedback. Also, a big shout out to a couple people who have left some reviews over on Apple for the podcast. That hit me right in the feels. So much appreciated for that. Always enjoy reading and appreciate anyone that's sharing out the show. Been on this journey, and I ran into some people in Cleveland this past week at the Marketing AI conference, which I'm going to talk a little bit about here on this show. But a couple of people that walked up to me that actually listened to my previous podcast. Actually, someone came up and said, "Hey, Brian, I started following you and listening to Smack Talk." Which is a podcast I co-hosted with Daniel Newman, my business partner at the time, and it stood for Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud. It's an old school show. We stopped it, I believe, in 2016, maybe 17. But it was a podcast that I absolutely loved doing, and I thought that was wild. And I actually had a couple people that showed me on their phone that they had the Press the Damn Button podcast on their show on their phone, and I guess the lesson and the reason I share that is, it's nothing I love more than going to IRL events, which I've been able to be speaking at the last couple of weeks. But actually, more so is just a reminder of, for anyone that's listening, if you're a creator in any sort, right? If you're creating on Instagram, creating on Twitter or X, that I guess it is now, maybe you're creating a podcast, maybe you have a YouTube channel, you really never know who is listening or who you're impacting as much as we wish we did. I wish more people reached out and let me know that they listen to the podcast. I wish more people, tweeted out. Because for me, it's less about promotion, and it's more about like validation and reminding myself. No matter how big of a creator you are or how long you've been in this game, I can just tell you that it feels good knowing that people are listening, that people still care, that people are on the journey. And for that, I will say, like, it never gets old. And it was really cool seeing people in person. The other part has been, I've been still dialed in, following really closely in the NFT Web3 creator economy space, and of course, been paying attention to the AI space, which I think since November when ChatGPT came out, I think everybody's been kind of, kind of had their eye or ear to all things Chat GPT, and of course Mid-Journey, and what I've been doing there with creating art for over a year now. I've been an artist for over a year, which is kind of wild to think about. But I will tell you, I've been giving a talk. I've been hired to speak on the topic of the value of storytelling in an AI age, right? In the age of AI. And that's a talk that I've been giving, more recently. I be a talk I'll be giving more, I can guarantee, in the future. But one of the things that I've been noticing, and I actually tweeted this out while I was in Cleveland for the Maycon event, which was pretty amazing. 700 plus people there that were marketing an AI conference put on by the Marketing AI Institute. Big shout out to Paul and the team over there, Kathy and Ashley and everyone else that was involved with that event. Really great event. Definitely check out their content. They have their own podcast. Mike and Paul, the co-founders of the Marketing AI Institute. They have a great podcast to definitely check out as well. But I will say, one of the things I noticed was there was really no conversations at that event around Web3 and the intersection of AI, or even not even really Web3, blockchain and AI. And I've talked about that a lot here on this podcast. Many of you know that. I believe, like, the reason AI doesn't scare me, the reason AI I believe is an exciting future, has a lot to do with the authority, the validation, the transparency that the blockchain is going to provide, right? And one of those examples is that someone came up to me at the event that we were at that owned a piece of my art, and they were showed it to me on their phone, and it's a one of one, and they didn't even really know that it was a one of one piece. And I was like, yeah, it's a one of one art. I really appreciate you collecting one of my one of one pieces. And I said, what's cool about this is if anyone else said that they own that piece, you can actually prove and validate that on this day, your wallet bought that piece of art. And it'll validate that I'm the creator of that on this day, right? Adding that like layer of validation. But one of the things that I've been taking away from a lot of the AI conversation is how important ethics and culture and tech transparency is to the future of AI. And I think we saw that out of the gate. As soon as ChatGPT took off, many of the tech executives were saying like, "Hey, we need a board of people to help, kind of not overly innovate in the AI space." Which we could argue that having a bunch of let's just say people that are capitalists in the sense of they're ready to make money with these tools, get together and like try to say that they don't want people innovating, but yet we know they went back and we have new versions and new tools. And if you haven't used like Claude or even Pi, another great AI chat kind of personal assistant, there's so many AI tools that are out there. And for me, like the tools have never been part of the conversation that excite me, right? The tools to me are a vehicle to deliver a new experience, right? And that's how actually I look at it. I will tell you, like, to me, that's a big piece of this conversation is more about, how do we find that harmony between technology and humanity? And I do believe AI is one of the big answers to that. I believe AI is going to disrupt every single industry, every business, but I also believe the blockchain and NFTs still, no matter what we can say about the state of the market, what we could say about current innovation or focus, that I believe wholeheartedly that NFTs will be integrated into every business, every vertical, every day of our lives, in many different forms and fashion to validate ownership, to proof of experiences, to for owner and collectibles, and all of those things that kind of come full force. But I will say, the conversation that AI has really led is around that idea of like, okay, if an AI tool is pulling certain data, what data is it pulling, and how is that data controlled or regulated, and where are the biases around it? I mean, I sat in probably 4 different sessions at this event around understanding the bias and how we have to think about some of these things that are innately built within AI, and it really had me thinking a lot about where did we go wrong in the Web3 NFT space when it comes to the lack of ethics, the lack of transparency. And someone at the event said, "Brian, I think I know where that space went wrong." And their answer was simply the need and desire for people to stay anonymous, which I thought was super interesting, like their view from the outside. And this is like one of the leaders in AI, I believe at the top of the leadership chain, in my personal opinion. It's someone that I look up to in this space. And he said, he's very knowledgeable, listens to the podcast, probably will listen to this episode. And to him, so much of this innate, not only lack of trust, but history of bad actors and bad players, a lot of it is the idea that, if we weren't forcing people that were founders of projects and people that we are willing to give money to put their skin on in the game and connect their personal brand and more than just their first name, last name, but be able to be transparent and connected to their LinkedIn profile and us be able to validate, these people who they are. It's not just about those people, as this is what the conversation him and I were having. It's what it allowed tools and marketplaces to do, right? If we think about it from like a Blur perspective, right? There are a lot of people are angry or haters of the Blur marketplace. And I've said here on the show that I think Blur as a whole has been bad for the NFT space and the NFT market. While at the same time, did our lack of demanding transparency and accountability early on in this space and our willingness to allow the ethical line to be very blurred, did that facilitate a marketplace to be able to deploy and implement some questionable tactics and some things that probably wouldn't have flown if we would have been more dialed in on that side? And one could argue the crypto influence, just about no one that I've been kind of diving into with AI is really cares about crypto or NFTs. A majority of them are well aware about the power of the blockchain. A majority of them understand where this idea of AR, VR, AI, and Web3 kind of come together. But a lot of them are not influenced or even in the know. Like their knowledge of what crypto influences crypto isn't isn't ingrained in the AI space. And it got me thinking, because I do think right now is not the time for Web3, for monetizing, for Web3 brands. I mean, we just heard, I think it was today or yesterday, NFT Now. They had posted a couple weeks ago that they were hiring a bunch of new positions, and then it came out that they're actually laying off a bunch of people as well. I know pretty much almost every single Web3 company that I've been talking to, even been considering going back to work full time with a couple Web3 tools, because I wanted to help build. Almost every single one is either in a hiring freeze or going through a restructure of the company. And those are growing pains. I'm an early adopter. I love being an early adopter. But I will say, I will be honest here, and I think that's something I pride myself on with this podcast from day one. The frustration and the disappointment of where we're at today, I can't sugarcoat. If you would have asked me 3 years ago, when I was bullish on everything creator economy, and I was looking to better understand what the utilization of blockchain is going to look like, there's no way I could have predicted or would have thought we would be in the position we are in now. And the thing that I've always looked at as someone that I consider myself a futurist and an evangelist for that idea of the harmony between technology and humanity, something that I've always prided myself in, was that, to me, the blocking and the tackling, the bad actors, the things that are going on that are kind of on the fringes, both good and fringe on the bad, I've never really focused on those things. To me, it's been a much bigger conversation about, like, what is our impact and where can this integrate into our day-to-day lives, and how can small businesses and enterprise companies look at a lot of these things. And I'm doing the same thing with AI currently, from AI art to implementation of ChatGPT. I was actually on a call earlier today with the team from a very large 3-letter company around their AI model and what they're doing with their LLM, and where this is all moving. And I will tell you, what I've always looked at as far as mass adoption and growth was, what can we learn from past adoption strategies, past adoption mistakes, and even the human condition when it comes to things like revolutionary new technology or game-changing new aspects of life. And I'll say, like, one of the people that spoke at the event, there was a Harvard professor that was probably my favorite presenter of the entire event, the Macon event that I was at last week, that I was speaking at. He made fun of NFTs and crypto. He's like, well, this isn't, AI isn't in the bucket of, like, live video or, crypto or the crazy NFT Ponzi scams. And that was, like, a direct quote from him. And I found that really interesting, because there is, like, this idea of, like, how we look at, how certain things are either rolled out or phased in, or the language that we use. And if I go back and look, if we listen to the episode that I did, I believe it was in, like, December of 21. So 2021, December. I did an episode about Starbucks not using the same vernacular that NFT space was using, right? Around instead of calling it a wallet, they call it a passport. Instead of calling it NFTs, they call it stamps. Instead of calling it, rewards or tokens, they're calling it points. And I remember in that episode, to me, that worried me on two fronts, right? From an education front, are we confusing more people, right? If someone comes through the Starbucks ecosystem, are they more adapt to the native way of doing things in this space, or are they going to have to unlearn some things or retranslate some things? But then the second part of that was, what does that mean for this space, or how people associate? And I will tell you, we have yet to see a very big security exploit or a massive failure in the AI tool space. I will mark my words, mark this episode. It'll happen. It'll happen, in my opinion, probably in the next 45 to 60 days, where we will find out that a tool or a language model or some kind of version of something is either misusing data, using copyrighted data. One of the things that I know for a fact that will happen very soon is that we will see company employees using public chat GPT with data and information that is IP protected and should be kept in house and probably should be used only within a learning language model that is built off of the public. We're going to see people do that, right? Because it's humans. Humans make mistakes. That's what I learned. I worked a decade in cybersecurity for the Department of Defense, and that was always the thing that scared us in the cybersecurity space. It wasn't the tools. It wasn't the Chinese hackers. It was the human condition, right? The fact that we as humans will make mistakes. And the thing that's so interesting is that I believe that the AI space is really leaning in on saying, like, they're almost prepared for the negative side of things for happening. And I feel like on this side, on the the Web3 NFT crypto side, we took a different approach, right? We took an approach of like, wow, look how much money can be made and shiny objects, and there was more mints and things that are happening, but we weren't questioning failures or holding people accountable. And I know there was some recent news about a couple of, I wouldn't even say recent news. It seems to be like every couple of weeks there's a new influencer that's exposed for doing shady things, or that they rugged 5 projects before they launched their most recent project or whatever it may be. And each time I read that or hear that, it hurts me a little bit deep down, right? And I think the reason I wanted to do this episode is that, at that conference, and I'm gonna actually share my talk here on the podcast. I should get that next week, and I'll share it out with everybody, so you can listen to my talk on that side. I'm also gonna do a more I would say download debrief on all things like AI and where my head is on there. But I will tell you, the thing that really jumped out at me is this is a marketing leading conference with really companies like Amazon and Walmart and the Cleveland Clinic that are doing some crazy cool innovative things around using AI tools. Each one of them, we're taking it from the standpoint of baby steps, of understanding the adoption curve and kind of like understanding how where we need like regulation and rules, but we also have to question some of the leaders and the way that data is being used or things that are being shared. And the thing that I wonder is maybe where does AI come back into Web3 and help fix some of the broken culture that exists here? Where can we integrate some machine learning or language models that allow us to better understand some of the successes that exist in this space over the last 3 years, so that we can amplify and celebrate them? And I will tell you, like, I love seeing what some of these great projects are doing. Many of them we interviewed on the podcast, right? If you're not paying attention to what the Killa Bears are doing, what Degen Knights are doing, what let's say the meta athletes are doing, what Lazy Lions are doing, what Crypto Dads are doing, if you're not paying attention to what V Friends is doing, all over my feed currently, like, they're doing some really cool, innovative things. And I think for me, the frustration is the space was, we were building this to where it wasn't just the 1% or the 0.1% that were going to win. It was going to be the rising tide that lifts all ships, and that we were going to come together and understand how we could build and embrace community. And the frustrating part is it looks like we fell in the same old traps that we have before. I think the positive, optimistic side is if we're willing to look at what AI is doing, look at what the AI industry and the culture is doing. This is where my focus has been, especially recently. And, even for a couple of companies that I've been, interviewing and talking to about possibly going, into working with them, a lot of my kickback with them is like understanding their definition of success with AI. Where is their blockchain strategy? How are they looking at things like AR and VR and location-based services? And to me, all of this is exciting. And I think we are moving into a world where transparency and ownership are continuing to be valued. But I don't know how long it's going to take for us to fix or undo a lot of the cultural mistakes that have been made within Web3, within NFTs, within the creator economy, within crypto, within shitcoins. And that makes it frustrating. That hurts my heart. It makes it really hard to stay as positive as I like to be, as far as where we're going. But just know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm not giving up. I am looking at different ways of monetizing in a future, because I don't believe monetizing in Web3 is the place to be at this current time, or maybe even for the next 12 months. And that's hard for me to say, because mean, not only did I go all in with a podcast, but I went all in with my brand and my business and my life. And, unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes, right? Shit happens, life happens, failure happens. But I think at a bigger point of this, to me, what worries me is that we still haven't really learned or figured out what we could do better, or how we could implement things better, and then ultimately how we can start to grow together in ways where there is attention and money. And I mean, a majority of the companies that I've been looking into to better understand who I want to align with, the more scared I am about how all of this space is going. And I think time will tell, but I also think we have to learn from what's around us. Like, look at how AR and VR came out, right? I had Google Glass back in 2011, 2012. We deployed it in the company I worked for, the data center I worked for, but the timing was off, right? I remember, when VR came into the sunglasses that I still wear, my Snapchat spectacles, and they have an AR component, not a VR component, an AR component. I still wear them, but yet that technology really was too early for its time, and we didn't understand where that was going to all fit. And we could even fit that into things like the metaverse, right? Where does the metaverse fit in? But I'm a big believer in the more success AI has on us pushing the envelope for better kind of harmony, to better understand how we can create content, increase productivity, streamline data and information, expose bad actors. I actually think all of that in AI benefits all of us here in Web3, NFTs, and crypto. And so, in a weird way, I'll leave you with the idea that we should all be rooting for AI success. We should all be rooting and cheering on the future of tech in that realm, and even the VR and what Apple's rolling out with their the Apple Pro and their Pro Vision set. But at the same time, we should be willing and able and open to recognizing some of the things that current tech that is leaning towards success is doing better than what we did. Because guess what? Even when the bull market comes, the thing that scares me more than anything is that we just go back into our old habits and bad things that we did before, and we just set ourselves up for another 9-18 months of good in a bull run, only for us to wreck people and innocent people, and to get us back in the same spot that we're in now. And for me, that's the big picture that I keep my focus on, and I hope many of you do as well. So thanks everybody for listening to this episode. As always, thanks for sharing it out. If you have ideas for the show, if you have projects or people that you want to have on the podcast, reach out, let us know. If you want to have some more of the conversation around AI and some of the things that are happening there, of course, hit me up. I'm iSocialFans on every single social channel. And don't forget to hit subscribe. Hit subscribe to the podcast if you made it this far. Keep being in the know. We're gonna get back into a regular. I say we. It's just me. I'm the only one here now. I'm gonna get back into a regular publishing of the podcast over as summer kind of winds down, and we'll be rocking and rolling into the fall. But until next episode, my friends, make it a great day. Cheers.